everyone, and welcome to this week's episode of the Nature City Podcast. I'm your host, Carl Pradelli, and I'm also the CEO and co-founder of Nature City, having started the company over 20 years ago with my wife, Beth. And since then, it's been our pleasure to have served over 500,000 Americans by offering them the best supplements we can make. I think you're going to be very happy you tuned into today's episode, especially if, like me, you take a fish oil supplement to increase the amounts of the key omega-3 fatty acids in your blood. These omega-3s are EPA and DHA, and higher levels have been associated with better heart health, cardiovascular health, cognitive health, and many other functions as we age. Because of this, we've been encouraged to take more and more fish oil so our bodies have adequate EPA and DHA to help support us. However, this can be, inconvenient, taking many more pills, could also be expensive. Today, you're going to hear about a better way, which involves the AquaCelle delivery technology. Not only can AquaCelle help dramatically increase the amount of DHA and EPA that reaches your bloodstream, if you struggle with, fishy burps or repeating after you take fish oil, AquaCelle can help eliminate that too. To help break it all down, I am joined by a special guest who actually developed the AquaCelle technology with help from some colleagues. His name is George Kokkinis, and he's the Director of Technical Affairs at Pharmacobiotechnologies, and joining us today from Australia. So George, thank you for getting up early and joining us today.
No, thank you. Pleasure to be here.
Absolutely. So before we get into AquaCelle specifically, George, let's discuss why it's even needed. I think it stems from the fact that our digestive systems are kind of water-based. So when we take a nutrient that's fat-soluble, like oils, our bodies need to do more work to digest and absorb these nutrients so we can benefit from them. Can you explain this for us?
Yeah, sure. Look, the fat-soluble nutrients are, or the body is designed in a particular way to minimize the absorption of these nutrients. And the reason being is that a lot of them are toxic. So if you look at ingredients like vitamin A, vitamin D, even K, K2, etc., in large quantities, they are quite toxic. So it's a sort of natural mechanism the body has to only take in what it needs and leave the rest behind.
So whereas like the B vitamins or other water soluble nutrients, your body can absorb those easier. I think you're with fish oil, the omega-3s in fish oil, or as you mentioned, vitamins like K2, vitamin D, what else we have, like things like lutein. Your body has to actually do a little more work and I guess emulsify these nutrients before you can really absorb them?
Yeah, so it's not as easy. With water-soluble nutrients, they form what we call a molecular dispersion. So they get absorbed into the body very, very easily. But they also get excreted from the body very quickly and easily as well. With fat-soluble, not as easy. The body's got to do a lot of work to get them to absorb, and then it's got to do more work at the other end to keep them circulating in the bloodstream, without the liver getting rid of them or other mechanisms in place. So, yeah.
So like if you're taking a supplement, fat-soluble nutrients, and let's just go with fish oil since that's the focus of today's discussion. If you take fish oil on an empty stomach or after a low-fat meal, you're probably not going to absorb a lot of the key compounds, in this case the EPA and DHA omega-3s, into the bloodstream. Is this fair?
Yeah, it is fair. The body relies on having access to these nutrients in your gastrointestinal system or tract. So where most of these get absorbed is in the small intestine. So they've got to get through the or get prepped in the stomach, to then go into the small intestine and start getting absorbed better. Now, the way the body does that is by creating lipases or specific enzymes that can break these substances down and put them into a format that the body can then absorb into the bloodstream. So they need a lot of stimulation from the pancreatic enzymes to be able to get absorbed.
And I guess it's my understanding, I think the reason you want to take these nutrients after a meal or with fats is, I guess your body gets in that digestive mode where the enzymes are produced and activate and start preparing it.
That's right, but then it's sort of counterintuitive, because if you're taking these supplements for your high cholesterol, for example, or to stabilize your lipids in your blood, it's not right to be then having a high fat meal at the same time.
Right.
Defeating the purpose.
No, there's that, and then there's the question of, well, what's low fat versus medium fat? What's versus high fat? It's hard to figure out what exactly you're supposed to do, right?
That's right. Yeah, it is complicated. Yeah,
no question. So, one of the things, as I mentioned in the opening, a lot of times the way we're encouraged to kind of overcome this challenge as well. Just take more, just take more fish oil. That way, you get enough into your system, into your, enough of these omega-3s into your bloodstream. I want to discuss how AquaCelle overcomes this challenge. But, one thing first, sometimes when it comes to fish oil, customers are told, well, you can just take the triglyceride form of fish oil instead of the more common ethyl ester form. Does that really make a big difference in your view?
Oh, look, it makes a big difference in your hip pocket. But in terms of absorption, etc., the amount that you absorb more is not equal to the amount of money that you spend to get that increased absorption.
Right.
So even from work that we've done, a lot of the myth of TGs are better absorbed than EEs come from a very old study back in 1988, which was done on 8 men, and they compared free fatty acids to triglycerides to ethyl esters. Now, look, for starters, 88, the equipment that was available back then, it was nowhere near as sensitive as what we have today, and especially the methods as well for testing. If did GoEd or anyone like that even exist in 88? To have analytical methods entrenched and worked out to test for these things, the answer is no. So work that we've done is showing, look, TGs are probably 30% better absorbed than ethyl esters on their own, but when you look at the price per kilo, it's 3 times the price. So
right.
Yeah, is it worth paying 3 times to get 30% better absorption? I'd say no. The other thing to note as well is there are fish oil products out there that are prescription medicines. Okay, and the brand name is Omega-3 or Lavazza. Now they ran a absolutely massive study with roughly about 1,000 people back in '99, and the fish oil of choice for them is an ethyl ester.
Right.
When you look at the US Pharmacopoeia, for example, it talks about ethyl ester fish oils, not triglycerides. So they're well entrenched in the pharmaceutical world, but the nutraceutical world is always trying to drum up just minute changes which are not really beneficial.
Right. Yes. I mean, paying, as you mentioned, 2 or 3 times more for something that might help you 30% or so doesn't seem like it really makes a lot of sense. So let's talk a little bit about AquaCelle, because I think that does make a lot of sense. So AquaCelle is what's called a self-emulsifying delivery system.
Yep.
Sometimes abbreviated as a SEDS. So what does this mean?
Okay, so when you're digesting these fats and they're in the small intestine, the body creates what we call these structures called chylomicrons. Now, chylomicrons are similar to a micelle in structure. So it's a vesicle that has the omega-3 fat inside it, and by creating that structure, it's able to get through the cell walls of the intestine and into the bloodstream, or into circulation in general. What a self-emulsifying delivery system does is it mimics that structure of a chylomicron, but it creates it immediately when it comes in contact with water. Okay, so instead of relying on the body to create that structure, it's created for you, which then makes it easier for the body to take that substance in.
So, as we alluded to earlier, your body essentially needs to be in that fat digestion mode, typically to digest fat-soluble nutrients. But what AquaCelle or other SEDS are doing is they're doing the prep work ahead of time. So
Yep.
the body doesn't have to do that. So I guess by the time that nutrient reaches the small intestine, it's ready to take the next step in the absorption process. Is that about right?
That's right, and it's converted as close to 100% of what you've provided the body with. So if we give the body 500 milligrams of omega-3, all of that 500 milligrams of omega-3 is converted into a micelle structure, which then presents itself to the body for the body to do what it would do with it. Whereas when you're taking oil without that help, what does oil do in water? It floats to the top,
Right.
And all the area that the body has access to is just what the interface between the oil and the gastric juices or the stomach juices. It only has access to that area there. That's why people get the fishy burp and the reflux, because you've got the fish oil just floating at the top of your stomach, irritating, and then making you burp,
Yeah. No, it's like, it might help people to think about, in terms of like cooking, right? Where you have to emulsify, foods if you're baking, or if it's just a simple, like a salad dressing, right? If you're mixing I guess oil and vinegar, right? The oil will just sit on the top, whereas you need some type of emulsifier if you want to blend it, keeping the bottle blended. Is it the same principle essentially?
It is, yeah. In that instance, you would use a physical motion to blend it. In the body situation, it uses enzymes to be able to create the structures to be able to get them through. So I suppose what's important with SEDS or SMEDS is that you're actually building microscopic structure, and in this case, you're building a sphere which carries the active ingredient inside the sphere.
Gotcha. So I guess we have to refer to AquaCelle as a SMEDS, not a SEDS then, right? A micro-emulsifying?
Micro-emulsifying, yeah. And then there's also SNEDS as well, which is a nano-emulsifying, So.
George, when I first, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
I was just going to say it's a whole field of science which is has gained a lot of momentum in the last 30 years sort of thing, so.
No, absolutely. But one of the features, I mean, that segues perfectly into the next question I had for you, which is, we first started looking at AquaCelle, it was a couple of years ago now. One of the features that was really attractive is that it works at a really low concentration amount.
Yeah.
So I think it's 15%. So we didn't need to increase the size of like our soft gels or add additional soft gels per serving. So just for the audience, I'm saying if you had, say, a product with a total weight of 1,000 milligrams, only 150 of that, about 15%, needs to be AquaCelle. The other 850 could be your fish oil, okay? Many other SEDs require a much higher concentration to work. It could be 40% up to 80%, right? So you typically have to add additional, pills, soft gels to the equation, or make them much bigger, which most consumers obviously do not prefer. So, so George, how is AquaCelle able to work at this much lower concentration?
We did a lot of work up front to try and fine tune it, so like you said before, it's been a situation where people go, take more, more is better,
Right.
What we call the horsepower race, but there's more efficient ways of doing things, without spending that much effort, on taking more or creating more, So with AquaCelle, we did a lot of the work up front. We tried to find the point where that balance of AquaCelle and active is at its optimum. And what I mean by optimum, we were looking at multiple angles, so even the cost of it as well. So again, you don't want to create a system where 80% of your product is the system and 20% is your active.
Right.
And your cost is again 4 or 5 times more what your active would have been alone, So it is a balancing act, of getting the chemistry right, getting the accounting right,
Absolutely.
all of those areas, yeah.
I think you're being modest. This is quite a development you came up with. And just so you folks know, George is essentially the patent holders on AquaCelle. So he's being very modest here as we speak to him. But, you've done several studies demonstrating that AquaCelle can improve the absorption and bioavailability of the EPA and DHA, Omega-3s from fish oil. The one study I'd like to discuss a little bit now was published in the European Journal of Nutrition. Very impressive study, and it was really a large study, as these pharmacokinetic studies go. Usually they only have 10 or 15 people. You had, I think, over 60. Very well controlled in terms of how you did it to give you accurate, scientifically valid results. Can you just discuss the study a little bit and what the findings were?
Yeah, sure. Yes, you're right. It was 60 people, and what we were measuring was how much omega-3 is being absorbed into their circulation compared to fish oil on its own. The good thing with this study is both the fish oil arm and the AquaCelle fish oil arm used the exact same fish oil. So and it was the Alaska Omega fish oil as well. So we, by doing that, you remove a variable of, hey, my fish oil is better than the one that you used, and no wonder your results were as good as they were, etc. This way, we're just looking at it from a very equal point of view. The only difference between the formulas is one had AquaCelle, the other one didn't. Both, it was a single dose study, so that means it just had the one capsule in the morning, and all the food was controlled as well. So we kept it at a low fat menu on the day. both the researchers and the subjects were blinded to what intervention they were taking.
Yeah.
So nobody knew if they were taking an active or an AquaCelle or the control. Yeah, what the results showed us is that both formulas within 2 hours get absorbed roughly the same. After 2 hours, AquaCelle just takes off at that point.
Yes.
Which makes sense. It takes about 15 minutes for a capsule to break down and release its contents, and then it takes another 1 hour or so for things to move from the stomach into the small intestine. So you could see at that point, things were traveling the same.
Yes.
But once they were in the small intestine, the AquaCelle group just absorbed so much more.
I was going to ask you that one thing I wanted to just follow up on from earlier. So most of this prep work has to take place in the stomach, right? Before it gets to the small intestine. Is it too late, in terms of the enzyme activity and all that, by the time it gets to the small intestine?
Yeah, look, your digestion starts in your mouth pretty much, So you're chewing your food. All you're doing is you're breaking it down into smaller pieces. When it gets to the stomach, the stomach's a high acidic environment. It does the same. It starts breaking down your food into smaller pieces. The reason why the body needs to keep on breaking it down to smaller pieces is think of a jar with marbles in it or a basketball in it. Which format has the most surface area? Is it the basketball or is it 1,000 marbles? And the answer is 1,000 marbles would have way more surface area than a basketball.
Sure.
Why is surface area so important? Well, you need the different chemicals in your stomach or the different molecules in your stomach to interact with your actives, do the chemical reactions that they need to do to start taking things into the body.
Yeah.
It can only do that if it's got small pieces at a time. And that's what AquaCelle is achieving. It's creating these tiny spheres, millions and millions of them, which then the body can access really easily. The body can process really easily and take it in.
Absolutely. So back to the study, George. I know you measured EPA and DHA concentrations in the blood over a 24-hour period for both the regular fish oil as well as the AquaCelle fish oil combination. What were the results ultimately of that?
The results showed that we had an over 6 times better absorption. The next phase of the studies is to go into a more formal, larger study, which will look at what does the increased absorption mean. Okay, so we're being able to show that we're getting more into the bloodstream, but what are the clinical effects of that now? Does it mean you can reduce your dose? Does it mean it works faster? Does it mean it works better? Has longer effects, etc., etc.? They're all questions that need to be answered, moving forward. But for now, we know that we've got a 6 times better absorption.
I mean, that's really impressive. As we said before, people sometimes get excited about a 30% increase with the triglyceride form. So 6 times is quite a dramatic increase. And I think you measured both the EPA and DHA. With the DHA, seems to have there was a bigger effect on the DHA. Is there any reason for that in your mind?
Oh, there's a larger pool of DHA in the body.
Okay.
And a lot of the DHA flip-flops as well, so it gets converted to EPA and then backwards again. So it all depends on what's going on in your body at the time, and as to how substituting with more nutrients, how it affects that pool of omega-3 and DHA in particular. The EPA pool is much lower, and it's closer to the quantities that a typical capsule would give you, whereas the DHA is much bigger pool.
Well, as you mentioned, for the first 2 hours after ingestion, the increase between the two formulations, the standard fish oil and the AquaCelle fish oil combination, was similar, and then AquaCelle just takes off like a rocket essentially by 4 hours, kind of plateaus at a much higher level after 8 hours, and pretty much sustained that level for the entire 24-hour period.
Yeah.
Which, to me, which was impressive, because if you're trying to, one of the goals, a lot of people with their supplements are trying to increase the level of their omega-3 index, which,
Yes.
essentially measures the amount of EPA and DHA as a percent of total fat in the blood. I think the goal is to try to get, to 8% or above. Some people say a little higher than that, 9-10%, because those levels have been associated with, with heart healthy populations. So this sounds like it could be a good way. AquaCelle can help you maybe get there, either by continuing the amount you're taking, or perhaps even taking less, which I know you said you need to do more work on. So, would you agree? I mean, it seems like a better way to go.
Yeah, look, the whole purpose of all these nutrients that we take is we need them to get tissue in our body at some point in time to have an effect, So
Right.
If you're taking something for your brain, guess what? It's got to get to the brain. If you're taking something for your eyes, it's got to get to your eyes, etc. Now, the longer you stay in circulation, the higher the chance you have of getting to where you need to get to. Okay,
Yep.
so having it plateau after 8 hours and from 8 to 12 hours roughly sitting at a high level is a good thing, because it's showing that your omega-3 is staying in circulation, and it's got a very high chance of getting where it needs to get to, which in omega-3 index point of view, it has to get to a red blood cell. It has to interact with a red blood cell. It has to, form part of that red blood cell's membrane to be able to affect the omega-3 index. So yeah, getting into the bloodstream, and that's what I was saying before. We need to do a lot more studies, but getting into the bloodstream is half the battle. The next half is you got to get to where you need to get to.
Absolutely. So in addition to, showing, over the course of 24 hours, 6 times greater, bioavailability of the EPA and DHA compared to regular fish oil, there was another benefit, which we touched on before, which is, essentially eliminating, which is really the number one complaint of people taking fish oil supplements, which is the burping and the repeating that some users experience.
Yeah.
Was that observed in this study too?
Yeah, the same 60 people filled out a questionnaire at the end as well. So and the end result was that the 30 people that were on the AquaCelle, 0 of them experienced any burp back or reflux, whereas the people that were on the fish oil one, 5 of the 30 experienced the fishy burp.
Yeah.
So we're finding as well that a lot of clients or users, are liking the no burp back more than the increased absorption. So they're like, I'm not getting a burp, which means it must be working. So
No, well, look, just the effect. It's an uncomfortable feeling. My mother is one of those folks who struggles with those fishy burps, and she just wouldn't take it anymore, right? Because of that. And
Yeah.
So no,
Yeah.
it's a real thing, I guess, if you're in that category for sure. So
Yeah.
hey, another great benefit of AquaCell for sure. So one thing I wanted to ask you, George, in the studies, you appropriately use healthy young adults because this makes sense for research purposes because their digestion system is typically optimal and it doesn't bias the study results at all. But as we get older, our digestion can get a little more challenging as we age. So can you would you say AquaCell can be perhaps even more important for older adults?
Oh, look, it makes it easier to take because obviously you're reducing the doses significantly, and plus the zero burp back is makes it enjoyable as well. So
Yeah.
you don't have that to look forward to. From a purely science point of view, there's no difference between age and gender in terms of omega-3 absorption. For us, it was just, who's the pool of people we've got access to, and it so happened that they were all around that 24, 25 years of age. But yeah, look, we haven't looked at it in people that have issues in the stomach, and how it would affect them. But on a general population and absorption point of view, age and gender doesn't affect omega-3 absorption.
Excellent. Good to hear. So, George, one thing we haven't discussed yet is, what is AquaCell made of?
It's a mixture of ingredients. So they're all food approved ingredients, but we use the ones that have a pharmacopoeial that can comply to a pharmacopoeial standard. So for example, we use olive oil. Olive oil you can buy at your supermarket. But the grade that we use is reserved for pharmaceutical use. So it's a much higher standard again, and we do that on purpose because the more purified the ingredients that we use are, the better you can predict how they're going to behave. Whereas when they're impure, they do all sorts of funny things and cause you all sorts of grief. So yeah, we use medium chain triglycerides from coconut, not from palm. Olive oil, lime oil, a food additive ingredient called polyglycerol esters of fatty acids, vitamin E, and some lecithin that's high in phospholipids.
I know lecithin is a pretty well-known emulsifier, so that makes sense. But so that's again, pretty much all natural ingredients people are familiar with. So it's nothing out of the ordinary that people should be concerned about, which is great.
Look, we've sold over the past 6 years, we've sold probably 30 tons of AquaCelle worldwide. If I had to translate that to a dose, it would be about 200 million doses. We haven't had one complaint from one person.
Well, that was going to be my next question. So it sounds like, either in your research nor the experience with consumer usage, there hasn't been any, unwanted gastrointestinal effects, which you can have with some other delivery systems, right? You've had none of that or any other safety concerns at all. Is that right?
No, that's right. Like, yeah, I was reading a study the other day, and it was on a company, a German company that had a product. 95% was delivery system, and 5% was the active, which is fine, but when you looked at, they dosed the people, and half of them had stomach cramps or were vomiting or whatever.
Yeah.
You thought, these guys are crazy to even be, suggesting this study,
No, that's
yeah. So
that's
we don't have
interesting.
that.
No, I mean, that's exactly it. I mean, that does happen. I mean, it's almost the inverse of what you do. 95% you're using,
Yeah.
15%.
85.
But
Yeah.
so that's exciting. And again, no issues. I mean, there's a lot of experience you had, and no issues affecting the stability of the fish oil and the soft gel or anything like that, right?
No. We don't make it more stable. We don't make it less stable. So fish oil is a ingredient that you need to treat with respect. It goes off very quickly. It reacts. It reacts with the environment. It reacts under light, heat, et cetera, et cetera. So whatever applies to normal fish oil applies to this as well.
Absolutely. I'm glad you mentioned that you use the Alaska Omega fish oil in the study we just discussed, because that's exactly what we use in our True Omega-3 supplement. We combine the AquaCelle with Alaska Omega-3. So same type of combination as you used. We have about 910 milligrams of EPA DHA per serving, along with the AquaCelle. Obviously, we use the same 15% concentration that you've used in your studies and recommend. And we really think it creates the ideal, fish oil supplement, right? I mean, you have this pure, sustainable fish oil from wild Alaskan pollock. As you mentioned, fish oil can be easily oxidized, so the purity which the Alaska Omega folks go through, the methods of purification are very important because it really reduces the risk of oxidation. And then we combine the AquaCelle with all the features we just discussed, and in terms of increased bioavailability, eliminating the burps and the repeating. And we think, that really creates the ultimate fish oil supplement to help you increase those omega-3s that are so important. So, before we wrap up, George, is there anything else, you think we missed or you'd like the audience to know about AquaCelle?
Look, it's the only thing I'd like to say is that it's all made in Australia. It's made in our own factory. We're a medicine licensed factory. We're probably a step above dietary supplement sort of manufacture. All the ingredients, like I was saying before, they all meet pharmacopeal standards. In one way, it's good for us in terms of the predictability of the system, but also by Australian law, we have to use pharmacopeal grade ingredients. So we're not given the option of using cheaper versions. The technology's won awards. So 2020 Nutri-Ingredients USA award.
Yes.
And we've got multiple human clinical studies. So they're not studies on rats and rabbits and petri dishes. They're all on humans. Yeah.
That's very well said. And again, George, thank you so much for joining us. The sun's going down here, but your day is just starting over there in Australia. So we'll let you go here. But just want to mention how much Nature City really enjoys working with you and Pharmaco, and obviously our friends over at Gencor, who's your distributor for AquaCelle. And we look forward to a long relationship. And, for folks who are interested in the True Omega-3 supplement that I mentioned, which combines AquaCelle and the Alaska Omega fish oil, you can find both of those. You can find that product at naturecity.com. And George, what's your website if they'd like to learn more about your company?
Oh, it's Pharmaco, so PHARMAKO.com.au.
Excellent. So that's it for this week's episode. Thank you for joining us. You can like this episode and also subscribe for future episodes. You can also listen to us on your favorite streaming service. We're on Apple Podcast, Spotify, Google Podcast, and also some others. You can also go to our website, naturecity.com, and sign up to our mailing list. And every week, you will be alerted when a new episode becomes available. So that's it. George, thank you again.
Thank you.
Absolutely. And I'm Carl Pradelli, and we'll see you next week.